Oh, hey. You caught me. I was just there standing on this little box that I've made. Um, Getting ready to put some second coat of finish on it. Let's see. What was I going to do? I was going to talk to you about a little bit about pallet wood, reclaimed wood, and maybe people wondering where does he get his wood to make his boxes and different things from. You know, not everybody has a source for this stuff, and a lot of people go look at it. The box stores and the specialty woodcraft or different stores, and they look at it and say, I can't make something for buy a $30 or $60 board to make a box, and then I've got to go buy the tools to do it too. It's a little intimidating. So I'm gonna cut right through this. A lot of people talk down about pallet wood, reclaimed wood, barn wood, rough sawn, milled. This, you know, must have more money than the average person if they get too picky. The woodworking should be fun. Should be a release. I don't know how many hours I've come home at the world and says I just need to go sand something. It's very therapeutic. So this little box I made about a year or so ago. I stepped away from woodworking for about 22 years. Kind of the dumbest thing I ever did. Sold everything for reasons. The first child was little and he was starting to get into everything, and don't do that. Just try to work around it. Get them into woodworking. My two youngest boys now are just at the age to where they're, you know, I've come home one day and I found them in the shop fiddling with the stuff and trying to learn on my own. I said, well, wait a minute. This should have been done correctly. So we backed it up and done a little bit, and we've tried to work them into it safely. I highly encourage it. Don't let your kids grow up to be teenagers and run away and then say, I wish I would have taught them something. Just take this time now. Even if it's just to bring them out for a few minutes and let them run around the shop and see what Dad is doing or Mom is doing. But this little box here, now this is not perfect, but it is made out of pallet wood. 100% reclaimed wood minus the hardware. It does have a few cracks. That's from the final drying out, and a few knots. And it does have a few nail holes in the side here that I left unfilled because people want to know. Say, hey, that's neat. I said, hey, it's out of reclaimed wood. The sides, I think, are a maple. This is all hardwood. The top is either, I think it's a mixture of red oak and white oak, and I cut it at a diagonal and I put it on here, just a little bit difference in the grain. And then I went back and added the interior, an interior pull-out drawer. This is a nice little, nice little introductory piece for fairly nice for reclaimed lumber. Let's move on to the reclaimed lumber part. This would be what you commonly see on a pallet itself. This is a fairly clean piece. There's no knots, no holes, obviously no chunks, but it is fairly twisted. Now this piece was about 4 foot long. To get it down, it also had some pneumatic staples shot in this. These are the ends. This is the middle piece. Cut that junk out of the way. Then I took the piece just like the other half of this piece, took it over to the joiner. There is a nice joined edges, thickness planed, and this is a nice 2 3/4 by 3/8, close to a 1/2 inch board that you could make some really nice crafts out of this. And this is probably, let me get an exact length here. This is 21 inches long. That is really good for pallet wood. And then that thickness, it is just at a 1/2 inch. So that's not too bad for a free piece of lumber. If you mean by free, I didn't have to pay anything for it. But I did have to put a lot of work into this. I had to find it, load it, drag it home, and dry it out. And another thing you want to do is you want to at least for the introductory woodwork, you want to bring that in either shop, basement. I even seen people hide it behind the couch. My wife wouldn't let me do that, I'm sure. But I have a few tools that I bought over the years. A metal detector. This is not too expensive. This is about 20. Costs you about the same as a fairly decent 10-inch circular saw blade. $24 or so. And sometimes on sale you might be able to do a little better. It's a nice little size, just wide enough for some of these boards. And trust me, I have found screws and nails that you cannot see. I thought this thing was lying to me. I had to actually physically go back and dig them out. They were 1/4 inch below the wood. And this is well worth the money. I thought it was a luxury, but if you're going to fool with reclaimed wood, barn wood, old wood, rocks is another thing, dirt's another thing. Hit a decking screw with a planer blade and see what happens. Another thing, if you want to fool with a lot of reclaimed lumber, and you want to start making a nice piece, and I think this is nice for reclaimed lumber. I'm sure there's a lot of critics out there who will tell you otherwise, but for an introductory beginner, somebody like to brag on, say, hey, look what I've got into. It's kind of a, something to brag about, I'm sure. This is a moisture meter. You can get these. You can different. I think Woodcraft sells these. I ordered this one, I think, from Grizzly or somebody like that years ago when they had a catalog. And I thought at the time it was a luxury, but I had bought a large planer and I really wanted to get into nice hardwoods, but couldn't afford the big box store price, even back in the early 90s. I couldn't see giving that for that type of wood. And I didn't think I was good enough at the time for that. So I went out and bought one of these moisture meters, and I'm going to show you here. This thing goes from 6% moisture up to 20% moisture, and the moisture is the amount of the weight of the water versus the weight of the wood in there. And a lot of stuff will tell you, research will be 7 to 10% is what I've seen in some of the wood journals. Anything over 10% is not stable enough for furniture. But 6% is really good. So let's see what this is versus a piece that I just cut out of a pallet last night and brought in here and propped up in the shop. And I'll show you the difference. It's got two little pins and a little on and off switch, and it does have two settings for soft and hard wood. The piece that I have not planed or done anything with is bouncing between 6 and 8%. Not bad. So if you plane this down, the exact same board off the opposite end, it's around 8%. On the surface, if you go in the end, it's saying 8%. Okay, let's grab the one I brought in last night. Let's try it from the end first. Wow, 14%. So that needs to sit around a little bit longer. From the surface, if I do it right on the surface, now this was laying out in some rain for about, I don't know, 10 hours on the flat side. So if I go from the flat surface unplaned, 20%. It's going all the way down to the very bottom. So I'll grab another piece. This is the exact same board width. It's been laying in the shop for about, I don't know, 8 to 10 months. So it goes up. It's still at 14%. So, like I said, 7 to 10% is fairly stable to work with. So, that's just testing a pallet wood that you find on a loading dock, the back of a, in a dumpster or store. I get a lot of pallets from the local lawn and garden where they ship in the large tractors on a pallet. I know where the pallet comes from, I know who builds the pallet, and what has been on the pallet. If you do not know that, you might want to be careful where you get it from. There is chemical companies that ship barrels of chemicals, cleaning agents, pesticides, oils, heavy solvents. If it has a large 55-gallon barrel ring of unknown on top, I would suggest walking away. Just use common sense. If it looks clean, it's probably safe. There is some codes on the side of pallets if you really want to get into that, but most of the pallets I come from are sourced here within the States. They are not shipped from overseas, and they don't have any coating on the side of them. So those are the ones I usually like to use. They do have some white pine crating on the sides that are already fairly smooth if you do not have a planer. But this, I guess if you wanted to sand enough or had a belt sander, now I did have a belt sander when I started messing with this stuff years ago, in the late 80s, and I was playing around with it. And you can take a belt sander with a fairly aggressive belt and smooth this down enough to make something rustic. You're not going to get it trued up completely flat, but it is a far cry from what you can, this would do. Now, if you're going to make stuff like bird houses, the moisture is not that big of a deal. Bird feeders, bat houses, bird houses, it's not a big deal. If it warps or whatever after you put it together, that just adds to the character. Because most bird houses and stuff like that's going to be kept outside, and people don't really worry too much about it. Now, if you sand it down, it's fairly smooth, and you can get by with it. So, I'm gonna move it. We're gonna move over here, and I'm gonna show some of the joining of one of these large boards and see what we come up with. Now on these boards, it's not really worth it to me to pull these off, pull the nails, and then later on end up cutting the nail holes out of them anyway. So I've found it's a lot of work taking a pallet apart, and if you research it, there's a lot of people out there that tell you that it's a lot of work. There's a lot of people out there that want to save every piece of wood out there. That is, keep it from the trash, keep it from the dumpster and all that. But you got to really consider your time and effort. Can't save every piece of wood, so work with what you think is worth it to you. Now, this stuff is fairly solid. There's no cracks and few knots. If you get to a pallet that is busted up and you're thinking, I'm going to save the world one pallet at a time, it's not worth it. You'll end up throwing that pallet away later on, unless you got a fire pit and you're going to burn it. So, this is what we ended up with. Something almost similar to the smaller board. It has got one knot right here. But look how clean and clear that is. There's a little bit of dirt and rust from my table, but the knot carries through on the other side. The only thing you have to do now is true up this edge on the table saw. That is really a sharp, clean edge. The big difference between this and this. So, ending up with 3/8 of an inch thick, 5 3/4 wide, and almost 16 inches long. Not bad. This would make another great start to another box, or anything else that you need to do. And it is between about 14% moisture, so that needs to sit a few more days. There's a big deceiving between, once you get into the core of these boards on the flat side, this needs to sit in the shop for a few days to stabilize, and go back and recheck it just for the sake to make sure that you don't want to spend a bunch of time on a box and then it starts warping and twisting and stuff from just drying out. So it is big tempting to go ahead and start working with this. Take a few days, mess with a few boards, stack them, strip them up so that they'll dry nice and flat. Or you could even partially plane these boards to knock some of the outer roughness off, let it dry a few days, and then go back and finish the planing. But I hope that's helpful on that amount. But that's where I get a lot of my reclaimed lumber from. We do pull some from houses. It's left in the rafters and different things. I've got some barn fine stuff that was cut on the old circular sawmill and wood miser mills. I've used some of those that I made some other boxes from. But hope this was helpful. Don't be intimidated by pallet wood, but you know, keep in mind it is reclaimed lumber. Be careful, watch out for nails, rocks, dirt. Clean and check it thoroughly. But that's it from King's Wood Shop for today on reclaimed pallet wood. I'll leave some pictures of the this box once I get the finish on it. Finish. Huh. Well, please like us, subscribe, and it surely helps us out to let everybody know that, you know, this stuff is helpful. Thank you, and have a good day.